Welcome to the Athletic Soccer Show for the final time in this World Cup. It is your post-game review. I am Jack Collins, and I'm joined by the wonderful Mr. Rich Amofa to talk about the fact that Argentina are once again champions of the world. Rich, how are you feeling?
I'm drained. I'm exhausted, but in a good way. I think what we've witnessed has been something special. It's great. It's just a privilege to just enjoy the game. It's just amazing. I'm feeling great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm incredibly emotional. I think there was an element of this that was maybe the final to end all finals in so many ways, and it toyed with us and it played with us, and in so many ways it was the best of exactly what international football is about, at the highest stakes, at the highest level, and the amount of emotion going on in the game. It got to that point where it was like I felt sick, I felt like I couldn't breathe. It's like, and I'm just not Argentinian. Do you know what I mean?
We're
It's like
neutrals. Exactly.
this is it. So one of those games where it just had absolutely everything. But Lionel Messi finally has closed his international chapters, you would imagine, with the greatest trophy of them all.
I mean, it's just a great story. It's a great way to cap off what's been an amazing career. Obviously, all of the talk before the game was about him, and he produced in the game. He got the goals. He stood up when stood up to be counted. It's just that France would just not die. It's what they've done all tournament.
Yeah.
When they look like they've been dead and out of it, they've just come with a quick combo and have stayed in it. It's been incredible. And sometimes they say with penalties, it's like, this is not right, not the best way to decide the game. But I think in this situation, in this occasion, it was the fitting way, because someone had to win that game, and it was just, as I say, for Messi to end his international career in this way is just fantastic for him.
Yeah, I mean, like, what a game! I think is the kind of point we're at this point. It's not necessarily the whole. Yes, there's all these narratives. Yes, there's all these emotions around it all. But actually, the other thing is just the fact that we have just witnessed the most incredible game of football that had all the twists and turns. And actually, the weirdest part about it is for 70 minutes, it didn't look like it was going to be a classic. And then, we got the last 20 minutes, which were mayhem, and then 30 minutes of extra time, which are incredible. So we've had 50 minutes of one of the great finals. It just took more than half the game to burst into life.
I mean, when Argentina went in 2-0 at half time, I think most of us thought the game would be over. I mean, obviously, I spoke about France earlier and them coming back, but I just thought in this situation, this occasion, Argentina have had 2 goal leads before, and they've let them slip, and they thought, no, not again. They're going to see the game out, and they looked like they were doing a great job. And even when the second half started, they looked very much in control. France still looked devoid of ideas, and I think even up to the 65th, 7th, or just before their goal, I mean, they didn't have a shot on target, didn't have a shot on goal up to that point, really. They weren't in the game at all. They looked miles off the pace, whether that's due to their illnesses or whatnot. But as you say, from the 70th minute onwards, it was just go, 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 literally bang, 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 and it was non-stop. And both sides served up what was just a fantastic feast of football. And as I said at the beginning, it's a privilege and an honour to watch these great players in action. It really was.
Yeah, it was those. And look, sometimes I think you get to finals and the big names don't deliver on the hype, right? You actually go back down the line of finals, and how many of them have been decided by the key player. Obviously, the one that springs to mind, as the last one that was fully and completely decided by the good actions of the main man going into it was Ronaldo R9 in 2002. You're going back 20 years, and another South American winner. To kind of see a final that produced the narrative arcs that people were talking about before the game. And, we did talk about Messi and Mbappe, and, there was questions about whether Antoine Griezmann was actually going to be France's main man. It very much was Messi versus Mbappe today in so many ways.
It really was. And I think that's what we wanted. At the end of the day, we can talk about refereeing decisions, and, throughout the tournament, there has been a number of really interesting decisions, to put fairly. And that was my only fear coming into the game, that the game would be decided maybe on a dodgy refereeing decision or something of that ilk. So for us to see and witness just quality throughout the game, the main men coming to the fore, Messi getting his goals, Mbappe with his hat-trick, being the first to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final since Geoff Hurst in 1966. I mean, all of that, that's what you want. And when, especially, I think Walid Regragui said something really interesting when they got knocked after the game yesterday. When he said, football allows you to dream, especially with young children and things like that. And for any youngster watching that, you'll think you want the top players to perform, and it's amazing. But it also makes us, so I say us oldies, we're not old yet, but it makes us feel young again. It gives us that verve and exuberance to be like, yeah, these are the top men on the stage, and they're producing, and this is what we're going to be talking about for the next. For the next 4 years until the next World Cup. It just gives you so much enthusiasm, so much hope that the big men, the main men, come to the fore and produce on a higher stage. Just fantastic to see.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, look, there have been plenty of things about this World Cup that have been, that we haven't liked, especially in terms of off the field issues. But on the field, generally, I think it's been a wonderful tournament in terms of quality. And it's just one of those, obviously when international breaks come around, you see people going, we're getting a break in the Premier League, in Serie A, in La Liga, whichever is your league of choice. People go, I'm not sure I want this. And it always reminds me that you get back to international football. And for me, it remains the purest form of the sport. This is actually what it all comes down to. And yes, obviously it's nowhere near as pure as perhaps it once was. And we're never going to get that back, unfortunately, that kind of childish innocence to the international game. But I think compared to league football and domestic football, there is just still that overwhelming emotion around international football that maybe you don't quite get everywhere else.
No, and I think that's because, as you say, these tournaments come around, don't come around very often. Obviously, you've got your Euros or your kind of continental tournaments, every 2 years, and you've got the World Cup every 4 years. And so, again, these are the moments to savor. These are the best players from your country representing your country on the biggest stage. And I think that just gives you something to get behind. Of course, we all have our club loyalties and things like that, but it's something special about international football. And I think it is bringing it to the forefront again, because as you rightly say, there was a time where, people looked at international football and were like, this is a bit of a drag, not very fun. It's, teams just defending deep, and we're not seeing much action. But I think in this tournament, I think everyone's gone for it. Maybe it is due to the winter tournament and players coming into it kind of not hitting their peak, but with good fitness and ready to hit the ground running. And as you've seen, we've just seen so much intensity, so much drama, teams going right to the end, and yeah, it's been great to see. Of course, off the field issues, we've had to speak about them, and I think the Athletic have done a great job in highlighting them, not just before the tournament, but throughout the tournament. Even until this morning, there were stories about the off-field issues, which is really important to highlight. But on the pitch, the action has just been incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to make some shouts out to the managers here, because there was a couple of good decisions and a couple of bad decisions, and I think we can kind of work our way through them. I thought Scaloni's initial pick of bringing Di Maria back into the side was a masterstroke in so many ways, and actually playing him on that left-hand side. We haven't seen him play that much there in this tournament. We haven't seen him play that much full stop in this tournament, but when he's played, he's often actually played on the right. And I think there's an element of Di Maria that when he is on the left, he gives this forward line a real nice sense of balance. It allows Messi to drift. And today I thought that worked to perfection. The kind of flip side to this is when he brought Di Maria off. If Argentina hadn't won this World Cup, I think we'd be looking at that and going, that's the moment it all went wrong for Lionel Scaloni and Argentina.
Yeah, I mean, before coming into the game, I said that, if Argentina set up as a 4-4-2 that they did in the semi-final, they'd go a long way to winning the game, because just keeping the midfield compact, again, filling the pitch with central midfielders, denying that space for Antoine Griezmann to kind of wreak havoc as he has done in previous games, I think was really good from Scaloni. And keeping Di Maria wide on that left and really stretching the play when Argentina were on the ball, it allowed them to, as you say, stretch the play and allow the likes of Messi and even Alvarez Messi can find those gaps, as we know, and Alvarez stretch the play going forward and pushing the defense back. And I think Argentina really had joy in that central area, because they outnumbered France there with the 4-4-2, and then Di Maria 1v1 with Koundé and having him isolated against him. I mean, Di Maria was the overwhelming winner there. So it was real kind of masterstroke initially for Argentina. And as I say, until the point where they took him off, they really controlled the game. And as you rightly say, when he did come off, things started to go awry for them, and made you think, why, he wasn't carrying injuries, playing really well. He was still bombing up the pitch and creating chances that, it was it was a bit of a strange one. And as you say, if they lost the game, we'd be asking questions. But seems like a distant memory now. But I mean, from Di Maria's perspective, it was great to see him on the left. You know, there was the Di Maria of old. You know, I'd say 2014, Di Maria, where he was just direct, running at his fullback, having him isolated 1v1. He almost, you know, he rolled back the years there, and it was a really good performance from him.
Yeah, and a word for Didier Deschamps, because he made an incredibly bold call to pull, you know, Olivier Giroud and Ousmane Dembele before half time. You know, that's pretty stones on the wall. You know, he's gone and gone, right, if I'm going to kind of live or die on my sword here. But his changes worked almost to perfection. I thought Koulibaly and Thuram both were massive threats. They both had a hand in the way that the goals were created for France across the course. And, you know, making those changes is a bold move to bring off your, you know, second top scorer at the tournament, to bring off one of the brightest one-on-one players in the entirety of world football in Ousmane Dembele, and to chuck on relative inexperience, I think, in Koulibaly and Thuram, especially at international level, was very brave, and it very nearly paid off for him.
Sometimes, you know, you have to be bold and decisive, and whatever France were doing initially just wasn't working. There's some things that, you know, sometimes, you know, in England, that's what Gareth Southgate gets criticised for, you know, not making changes quick enough to affect the game. So for Deschamps to make those changes, again, just before half time, it would have put Food Noses out of joint. But it's something that he had to do. And in the semi-final, he made a good change by taking Giroud off and moving Mbappe up front, bringing on Thuram again to help his fullback, Theo Hernandez, who was really struggling. And again, we saw that today. You know, Thuram, okay, he had the quality going forward, but he was willing to run back and support his fullback. And Koulibaly as well. I mean, what a great impact he's had in the last couple of games. And there's someone who's riding a crest of a wave of confidence, and he came on and again affected the game positively for France today. So credit to Deschamps for making those calls. You know, that's why he's got to back-to-back World Cup finals. It's not by mistake. It's not by accident. You know, you have to have a strong manager to make these calls, and he did that, and it was almost decisive, as you say. It wasn't for a few penalty kicks away. You know, we'd be looking and saying, "Oh, Deschamps, what a fantastic manager."
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one more word on France before we move back to Argentina to close this off. But Kylian Mbappe has just dropped a hat-trick in a World Cup final, as you said at the top, and ended up on the losing side. That is very, very rogue. You know, that's the kind of thing that you will probably never see again in our lifetimes. A player scoring a hat-trick in a World Cup final and ending up on the losing side is one of those you can't even fathom. He must be sitting there going, well, just what more could I have done?
What do I do? Exactly. I think it just goes in line with this tournament and just the crazy scenes and nonsensical things that have been happening from day one to today, really. And again, you know, even up to the 70th minute, you're looking at Mbappe and thinking, you know, where are you today? You know, it was really, you know, nullified well by Argentina. You know, they doubled up on him very well. You know, Rodrigo de Paul coming in to help his fullback every time Mbappe got the ball, and he really struggled to find space, even when he tried to drift inside off the line. So, as I say, from the 70th minute onwards, he just came into his own, and he was the Mbappe that we all know and love. And you know, as you say, he got a hat-trick, and he almost very much got an amazing fourth goal at the end when he took on a few players at the end. I was just thinking, if you had scored that, I don't know what I would have done. My laptop would have gone everywhere. I would have been crying more than what I am now, because that would have been a fantastic goal. But again, like we said, you want your top players to perform at these top games on the highest stage and the biggest stage. And Mbappe really came to the fore, especially after the 70th minute.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today belongs to Argentina, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of tears, contrary to the words of the popular song. But Emi Martinez in a penalty shootout has come up big once again, and I think he is incredible at this. Now, obviously, if you're on the opposite side, you're going to dislike his antics. Reasonable, because they are on the edge of what's acceptable and what's not. But I think Emi Martinez is one of the best in the world in making a penalty shootout one-on-one. It's not, you know, the crowd and you against him. It's not your team, and it's you versus him. And he is that kind of mentality monster. I imagine he looks or imposes himself 8 feet tall when he's standing there in the net, and he's already, you know, trying to play mind games with you. And he's come up big again for Argentina in a shootout.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got you know, history and he's obviously set a precedent in previous shootouts, of course it puts you know, doubt in the striker's mind. But again, as you rightly say, he finds a way to level it up, you know, to almost put it into his favor. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't like the antics in terms of, especially for Tchouaméni's penalty, when, you know, he held onto the ball and then threw it away. You know, I think the referee had to be stronger there, because that's that's not right. But at the end of the day, you have to do what you have to do. You know, if that's my goalkeeper, I'm saying do what you need to do. Hold onto the ball, kick it away, sit on it. You know, just do anything to put the striker off, put the attacker off, because the odds are against your favour. And then you say he's expert at doing that. He gets in the striker's minds, and you say he pulled off save again today, and was instrumental in his side winning the game. It also a shout out to him for that save right at the death as well from Colin Mawani. I mean, that was an unbelievable save to get his leg out there. So one of the last kicks of the game. So yeah, he's had a really good tournament, and as you say, you know, the first Aston Villa player to win a World Cup, I think is incredible.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there'll be parties in the streets of Birmingham tonight. I'm sure there'll be plenty in the streets of Brighton as well, with Alexis McAllister dropping a wonderful performance in this final. But today, I think, belongs to Lionel Messi. And I think that his team would be the first to admit that. You know, it's been one of those things, and we talked about it during the tournament, you know, whereas Messi's reputation, I think, around the world is pretty stalwart. I think the kind of arguments about whether he's the greatest ever will rage on, you know, forever and a day. I think this, for me, closes that case from where I'm standing. I think it was probably closed before this tournament, but I think this puts the gloss on the top of it. But we've talked about the fact that actually the one place where maybe he's not actually regarded as the greatest ever is Argentina, because of the way that Maradona had inspired the country to the World Cup. And I think he has now firmly placed himself alongside, you know, the late great Diego Maradona in the kind of pantheon of his country's heart. And that, for me, was, I think, the most emotional bit about all of it. It's about the fact that now Messi will be regarded within his own country as up there alongside his idol. And that's an amazing thing for me.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In terms of storylines and fairy tales, you know, this tops a lot. And I think what you're saying about him and his status within Argentina is really important, because, as you say, they've had, you know, near misses in the Copa America in 2010s and things like that. And as you say, winning the Copa America last year was the real kind of catalyst and almost changing that mindset in Argentina. But again, there was always the question: can he win the World Cup? Can he drive his country, lead his country to World Cup victory? And as you say, he's done that now. And considering that and everything else he's done in the game, you have to look at him and think, you know, he's undisputed now. I think it's hard to argue against it, because again, even this Argentina side, I wouldn't say it's great on paper. I wouldn't say it's great even, you know, with everything. But again, they're able to play and be, you know, bigger than the sum of their parts. And with Messi just there, just sprinkling at the top, this is everything that he just brings to football. He's brought us so much joy over the last 15, 16, 17 years. And for him to cap it off in this way, if I was him, I'd retire tomorrow, to be honest. What more can you do?
I'd retire today, Rich.
Yeah. Literally, as soon as you lift the trophy, I say, I'm done.
I'm done.
You can't top this.
Pick up the trophy, sting the 10 shirt over your back, and walk off into the sunset.
That's it.
Although I imagine he might have something to say about adding one more Champions League to the bag, and perhaps one final Ballon d'Or as well, which is obviously going to take place next summer. So we shall see. But on that note, I think it's probably time for us to call it a day. And all that's left for me to do is say thank you so much to Mr. Rich Amofa for joining me. It's been a real pleasure throughout this tournament, my friend.
Yeah, Jack, no, thank you so much for having me. It's been great. You're a fantastic host, and what a tournament it's been a pleasure to chop it up with you about all the games, really. And yeah, look forward to working with you again.
No, absolutely. I've West London to the world from over here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for tuning in as ever, everybody. I've been Jack Collins. This has been your final Athletic Soccer Show post-game review. Argentina are champions of the world, and Lionel Messi finally will host the Jules Rimet Trophy ahead of his, well, relatively small frame, but gigantic stature within the game. Thank you for tuning in.